Hey guys, tonight we weave our way, very gently, into the dusty corner of a Greek myth that's less Hercules punches a lion and more, oops, I turned you into a spider. You're sitting cross-legged beside an ancient loom, its wooden frame creaking like a half-asleep grandfather. Threads stretch across it like sunbeams, taut and shimmering in the olive-scented air. The walls of the temple around you are cool stone, etched with stories older than bedtime itself. Somewhere outside, a storm is building over the Aegean. Those lazy, moody thunderclouds dragging their feet across the sky. It's quiet, peaceful, almost, except you're sharing a bench with Athena, goddess of wisdom, war strategy, and, apparently, the domestic arts. She's humming to herself, weaving something so intricate your mortal brain nearly folds in half trying to follow the pattern. It shimmers faintly, like it knows secrets. The goddess isn't looking at you, but she knows you're watching. You feel it in your kneecaps. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You try not to sneeze as a curl of wool brushes your nose. Athena doesn't seem the forgiving type, not when she's in work mode. Her hands move like they're remembering something you haven't learned yet. Decisive, elegant, and completely silent. She's weaving a story, one thread at a time. And you've shown up just in time for the part where everything goes wrong. You should know something. In Greek myth, being the best at something is dangerous, especially if you say it out loud. Mortals who brag tend to end up turned into bushes, birds, or light snacks for sea monsters. But no one seems to have told that to Arachne, a weaver from Lydia with exactly 0 sense of chill. She's not even royalty, just a regular human, born in a modest town where the sheep probably outnumber the people. And yet, word spreads. Her tapestries are so precise, so heartbreakingly gorgeous, they almost seem alive, like they might crawl off the wall and tell their own stories. People travel miles to watch her work. They gasp, they applaud, and Arachne, bless her, eats it up like a honey cake. She starts dropping comments like, "Sure, Athena invented weaving, but I've improved it." Or the crowd favorite, "The goddess should be learning from me." You pause. Maybe you misheard, but no. She said it. Again. That's when the olive trees start rustling. Now, Athena doesn't always retaliate. Sometimes she's too busy playing divine chess with Poseidon or tweaking owl migration patterns. But the thing is, she's also the goddess of pride, of glory, of not being one-upped by a teenager with fancy wool. So she pays Arachne a visit, but not with thunderbolts or a glowing chariot. No, Athena's a little more passive-aggressive than that. She shows up disguised as an old woman, complete with a shawl, a cane, and the world's most disappointed grandma face. "Sweet child," she says, wobbling a little. "You should be careful what you say. Challenging a goddess, that never ends well. Maybe apologize." Arachne does not apologize. She flips her braid over her shoulder, brushes a strand of wool off her tunic, and says, without blinking, "I'm not afraid. If Athena thinks she's better than me, let her prove it." And just like that, the temple breeze goes still. The air smells like ozone. The old woman sighs and straightens. The disguise peels away like cobwebs. And there stands Athena, full divine glory engaged, eyes like storms and patience officially expired. Historians still argue whether this moment was a trap or a test. Did Athena want to teach Arachne a lesson? Or was she genuinely curious to see how far human talent could go? Either way, the challenge is accepted. A contest is declared. 2 looms, 2 sets of hands, 1 reality warping embroidery duel. It's a weird form of combat, sure. But this is ancient Greece, the place where liars can kill, olives are political, and dancing can summon earthquakes. So, weaving war? Sounds about right. A crowd gathers, half mortals, half minor spirits, pretending to be impressed. You stand off to the side, close enough to smell the linen, but far enough to not get turned into anything. And the contest begins. Athena's side glows like the dawn. Her tapestry tells the story of her own triumph. How she won Athens from Poseidon with an olive tree. How she gifted humans with crafts and logic. How the gods rule wisely, at least in theory. Her figures are flawless. Every god looks like they belong on the cover of Mount Olympus Monthly. Even Zeus has his shirt on. And then you look at Arachne's tapestry. It's beautiful. It's a problem because Arachne's version doesn't show victories. It shows scandals, the misdeeds of the gods, rendered in silk and gold. Zeus transforming into a swan to trick a girl. Poseidon flooding towns out of spite. Even Dionysus is there, tripping over a grapevine. And Athena herself, slightly off balance, like someone caught mid-eye roll. The detail is breathtaking. Too breathtaking. You can almost hear the divine teeth grinding. Arachne finishes first. She steps back, brushes a thread from her wrist, and smiles. Not wisely. You shift your weight. Even the wind seems to hesitate. Athena stares. There's a long pause. Then she rips the tapestry apart. No divine fire, no lightning. Just rip. Like a frustrated ant shredding a birthday card. You almost hear Arachne's heart break. She stands frozen. Not scared, not angry. Just blank. And Athena, now visibly fuming, does what ancient gods often do when their feelings get too loud. She transforms Arachne on the spot. The girl gasps. Her arms twist inward. Her back hunches. Her fingers thin and multiply. You watch, too slowly, as Arachne collapses, limbs lengthening, shrinking, curling. No one claps. A breeze blows through the temple, rustling the torn edges of both tapestries. In the corner, a spider crawls into a dark stone crevice. Arachne is no longer Arachne, not exactly, and you are very, very awake. You don't move right away, not because you're frozen in terror, but because your legs have gone a little numb from sitting cross-legged too long. And also, let's be honest, because the goddess of war and wisdom just casually rewrote someone's anatomy like it was no big deal. Athena doesn't look at you. She doesn't look at anyone. Her lips are tight. Her jaw's doing that twitchy thing people do when they're pretending to be calm, but are actually trying not to launch a lightning bolt at someone. Then she disappears in a shimmer of olive leaves and low-grade divine shame. You're left with silence and one very small spider. It takes a moment before your eyes adjust. There she is, Arachne still. Kind of. Her thread-like legs tremble on the cold temple floor, unsure whether to scurry or sulk. You lean in. She blinks. Maybe. It's hard to tell with spiders. 8 legs, yes, but you're not sure where the emotions go now. What nobody tells you about ancient Greece is that most stories are overheard in wool shops. You walk down a dusty lane in Lydia, now modern-day Western Turkey, and that's where this tale actually begins. Not with gods or temples or magical transformations, but with Arachne's wool shop. It's not much to look at. Just a few bundles of dyed thread, a loom that's older than your grandma's rocking chair, and a tiny stool that creaks when you breathe near it. But the place has a reputation. It smells like rosemary and sheep. There's always someone peeking in the window. Travelers, nobles, nosy neighbors who swear they just need some thread, but really want to catch a glimpse of the girl everyone's whispering about. You poke your head inside and there she is. Arachne, human-sized again for just a moment in memory, sitting with her legs folded neatly beneath her and a spindle in her lap. Her fingers are fast, not frantic, just efficient, like they've already figured out how to manipulate reality one thread at a time. Her brow is furrowed with that particular flavor of arrogance that's 70% earned and 30% adolescent bravado. She knows she's good. She doesn't even flinch when people compare her to Athena. In fact, she likes it, and that's when the trouble starts. Not with Athena storming in, but with the gossip. Some say a priest walked by and bowed to her. Others claim noblewomen offered her gold for lessons. One fringe historian even insists a minor river god commissioned a tapestry of himself reclining dramatically on a rock, and Arachne added more muscles than he actually had. The town eats it up. Every week, more people stop by just to marvel, or ask questions like, how do you get your threads so symmetrical? Or, is it true you beat a nymph in a speed weaving contest? Arachne takes it all in stride, tossing out humble brag lines like, well, when you're born with the gift, Eventually, someone asks the fatal question, "Who taught you?" Arachne doesn't hesitate. She doesn't say, "My mother." She doesn't say, "The gods." She just says, "No one." Just no one. As if she sprang out of the loom fully formed. As if wisdom wasn't ever passed down. And the goddess of crafts had nothing to do with it. The rumor spreads like spilled dye. Bright, fast, and hard to wash out. People start to talk. At first, it's admiration. Then it's irritation. Then it curdles into mockery. Historians still argue whether Arachne was truly arrogant or just tired of being told to be grateful. Some say she was pushed into pride. Others believe she was set up to fall, the way so many talented mortals are in myths, built up just so the gods can knock them down. One thing's for sure, she didn't keep her opinions to herself. One slow afternoon, Arachne's sitting outside her shop, spinning thread and sipping something warm. A couple of local girls gather around, curious, and Arachne, in full "I've had 2 cups of confidence" mode, says something like, "If Athena wants to prove she's better than me, she's welcome to try." That sound you just heard? That was a divine eyebrow being raised somewhere in the clouds. Now, Greek mythology is absolutely crawling with punishments that don't match the crime. Say the wrong thing? Turned into a frog. Brag a little? Enjoy being a tree for eternity. Arachne, of course, doesn't know what her consequences will be yet, but you can feel the temperature drop around her. The gods love disguises. It's practically a hobby. So, Athena doesn't swoop in with thunder and trumpets. She puts on her best old lady act and hobbles into town like a tired traveler looking for yarn. She praises the weaving. She calls Arachne gifted, and then she warns her. "You might be skilled," she says gently, "but don't insult the gods. That's not the kind of thread you want to tug." And Arachne, she scoffs. Not rudely, just confidently. She's used to compliments. She's used to being the best. And she's very, very used to not backing down. "If the gods are so great," she says, "why don't they come down and challenge me?" Spoiler, they will. There's an eerie calm after she says it. You half expect a cloud to burst or a goat to faint. Then the disguise melts. The crowd gasps. Arachne's stool tips over. Athena stands before her, tall and radiant and deeply unimpressed. Her owl flaps down from a nearby roof, lands on her shoulder, and hoots like it knows someone's about to learn a very itchy lesson. "I accept your challenge," she says. No fanfare, no warm-up, just 2 looms being summoned from nothing, threads leaping into place, and a silent crowd that already regrets showing up. It's not a fair fight. You know that. Even Arachne knows that. But she doesn't run. She doesn't even blink. She steps to her loom, straightens her back, and begins. You'd think a weaving contest would be boring. And honestly, in most towns, it probably would be. Two people hunched over looms, eyes squinted, backs aching, making rugs. Not exactly gladiator material, but not here. Not in the center of a village buzzing with divine tension and social curiosity. Not when one of the weavers is a literal goddess and the other might be her equal. Or her next cautionary tale. The looms creak like they know they're about to become artifacts. Athena begins with the easy stuff. Scenes of gods in their prime. Zeus doing Zeus things, shirt mostly on. Poseidon thrusting his trident into the sea, commanding waves like a toddler demanding juice. Artemis gracefully loosing arrows into the sky. It's a greatest hits album of Mount Olympus. The colors shift with unnatural smoothness. The textures layered with such precision that you swear you can feel the ocean breeze or the forest shadows. It's a masterclass, but Arachne, she weaves differently. She doesn't go for praise. She goes for truth, or at least her version of it. You glance over her shoulder, and your jaw almost hits your sandals. She's not glorifying the gods. She's exposing them. There's Zeus disguised as a bull, luring Europa away from her family. There's Apollo chasing Daphne until she has to literally turn into a tree to escape him. And then there's Athena herself, glaring from a tapestry corner where she punishes a mortal woman for a minor insult. Each scene is beautiful. Too beautiful. It's not mockery, it's precision. Every stitch is like a sentence in an argument you're definitely losing. The thread doesn't lie. The colors don't flinch. Even the backgrounds hum with layers of meaning. You realize you're witnessing a kind of rebellion. Quiet, soft, and made entirely of wool. Athena's face is unreadable. She weaves without missing a beat, but there's a slight tension in her jaw now. A stillness that feels like a storm gathering politely. Arachne, for her part, is calm, almost peaceful. Her fingers move with the certainty of someone who's not scared anymore. People whisper. Some are enchanted. Others are horrified. You hear someone mutter, Is that Hermes cheating at dice?" It is. It absolutely is. And it's weirdly accurate. A scholarly voice behind you says, "Historians still argue whether Arachne was just daring or downright foolish. Was this bold social critique or suicidal shade?" You nod slowly. Either way, it's mesmerizing. Hours pass. The sun shifts. Shadows creep across the floor like soft ink. The looms stop. It's done. 2 tapestries, one divine, one defiant. Athena steps back from hers and looks, really looks, not just at her own masterpiece, but at Arachne's. You can feel the shift in her breath. For the first time, maybe ever, she sees herself from a mortal's perspective, and it's not flattering. It's powerful, yes. Impressive, certainly. But kind, fair, wise, not so much. For a beat, she does nothing. Then, quick as a breath, she tears Arachne's tapestry in half. You flinch. The crowd gasps like a single throat. Threads snap. Gold fibers tumble like autumn leaves. Arachne stares at the shredded remains as if a part of her has just been unraveled too. She doesn't scream. She doesn't protest. She just wilts. And Athena, her hands shake, not with rage, but with guilt, or something close to it. She knows she's crossed a line. Gods aren't supposed to be petty. They're not supposed to lose, but they do, all the time. You take a slow step forward, and that's when it happens. Arachne sways. Her arms curl inward like vines in reverse. Her eyes widen, then blur, then multiply. You blink hard. Her limbs shrink, thin, then segment. Her waist pulls tight, impossibly tight, until it splits her shape into two distinct parts, body and legs. 8 legs. You want to look away, but you can't. Her skin becomes soft and glossy. Her face flattens. Her spine arches. Where a girl once stood, now hangs a spider, suspended by a single trembling strand. The crowd is silent. No gasps now. Just the kind of heavy, reverent stillness you get when watching a solar eclipse or a very polite apocalypse. Athena watches too. Her face is unreadable again, a mix of horror, pride, and something else. Maybe regret. Maybe not enough of it. One scholar centuries later would write, perhaps it was mercy, a cruel form of it, sure, but eternal weaving beats eternal silence. You step closer. The spider that was Arachne shifts slightly, adjusting her thread. She begins, tentatively, to spin. A thin strand of silk spirals outward, and just like that, she starts again. A new kind of weaving. No loom, no wool, just silk and instinct and the deep, ancient drive to make something beautiful, even when the world doesn't want you to. The transformation isn't just punishment. It's irony. It's poetry. It's divine recycling. Athena turns to go. No speech. No applause. Just a goddess leaving behind a myth she didn't quite intend to write. You stay a while longer. The sun's nearly gone now, leaking orange across the rooftops. The spider spins faster, more confidently. The web stretches from one corner beam to another. And somehow, it's beautiful. You look up. All across the ceiling, other spiders have joined her. Some were always there. Some, maybe, weren't. Their webs gleam faintly in the fading light. Maybe they're watching, maybe they're waiting, or maybe, just maybe, they're weaving stories of their own. Time moves oddly after a divine punishment. One moment, you're watching the final fibers of a tapestry drift to the floor like lazy snowflakes. The next, you're blinking at a corner where a spider hangs, suspended in her new forever. No crowd now, just dust, quiet, and the feeling that something irreversible has happened. The village goes on, of course. Chickens still squawk, bread still rises, but the air tastes different. People don't walk past the old wool shop as quickly anymore. Kids dare each other to peek inside and run screaming when they think they see something move. Most villagers pretend not to notice the growing network of silk threads stretching across rooftops, beams, corners. But they do. You stay longer than most. Not because you're brave. More because you're curious. And you've got the kind of sleep schedule that makes you compatible with spider hours. Every night, you creep back to the temple where the contest happened, and you watch. Arachne weaves, not with the neat, grid-like discipline of a mortal loom, but with the chaos of instinct and artistry smashed together. Her silk glimmers faintly in the moonlight, not white, like you'd expect, but pearly gray with flashes of bronze and gold when the wind hits it just right. It's beautiful. Quietly, heartbreakingly beautiful, and oddly comforting. She spins stories still. They're not shaped like gods anymore, but you swear one web looks like a feather, another like a broken crown. Some catch flies, others just dance in the wind, catching nothing but your attention. You lie on the cold stone floor and listen, not to sound, spiders aren't chatty, but to the rhythm of the silk unspooling. It's meditative, the same way waves are, or rain on a window. Arachne doesn't rush. She works with the patience of someone who knows time's no longer relevant. Funny thing, nobody expected spiders to have a personality, but they do. Especially this one. Arachne still has opinions. She favors high places. She avoids corners where people talk too loudly. She always rebuilds her web after it's destroyed. But she adds something different each time, like she's evolving the design, one thread at a time. One night, she builds a spiral that somehow forms a perfect image of Athena's owl. Not a threat, not a complaint, just a reminder, a little silk post-it note that says, I remember. Athena, for her part, doesn't come back. Or maybe she does. Maybe she's the wind that lifts the webs just so. Maybe she visits at dawn, disguised again, less to gloat, more to check in, the way someone visits an ex-friend's profile after a messy fallout. Historians still argue whether Athena felt guilt or just irritation. Some ancient texts hint that she might have sent other gods to check on the situation. One even claims that Hermes tried to apologize by delivering a tiny spider-sized loom made of moonbeams. That historian was probably high on olive oil fumes. What's more interesting is what Arachne becomes to other people. The villagers begin to notice that she doesn't bite, she doesn't stalk, she doesn't drop from the ceiling screaming, "Vengeance!" Mostly, she just weaves and minds her own eight-legged business. Kids start calling her Thread Lady in whispered tones. Old women, especially those with arthritis and ungrateful grandchildren, start leaving little bundles of wool near the door as offerings. Not to tempt her, just out of respect. And then it happens. Someone asks her for help. It's a young girl, barely old enough to spin, who's tangled all her thread into a knot so bad it's probably classified as a mythological monster. She leaves it near the temple, says nothing, and tiptoes away. The next morning, the threads untangled, perfectly, rolled neatly, even color-coded. Word spreads. Soon, there's a quiet ritual. Leave your ruined thread. Wait. Retrieve it in awe. No temple tax. No priest. Just a spider with a long memory and even longer patience. Arachne never shows herself, but her webs start getting weirdly helpful. One anchors a falling roof beam. Another blocks a wasp nest. One even manages to trap the town drunkard mid-rant until someone calms him down with bread. The villagers don't call it magic. They call it luck. But you know better. And the spiders? Oh, they've multiplied. They're not aggressive, not even bold. But they're always there. Behind pots, on windowsills, hanging elegantly above doors like soft sentinels. If you leave them alone, they leave you alone. If you insult them, well, let's just say one man found all his laundry webbed together into a toga and had to wear it to market. You suspect Arachne was involved, and still, she weaves. There's something oddly sacred about it, not in a flashy fire and brimstone way, more like a whispered blessing. The idea that art survives even when everything else collapses. That even after being humiliated, deformed, and abandoned by Olympus, Arachne doesn't stop creating. She just changes mediums. It's like Picasso getting banned from painting and responding by inventing sculpture, except smaller and with more legs. Late one night, as you doze against the wall, you dream that she speaks, not with words, but with movement. Her legs trace patterns mid-air. The wind rustles a message into your ear. You can always spin something new from broken threads. You wake up with goosebumps and a spider gently crawling across your sleeve. You don't flick it off. You nod. You're not sure when it happens. But eventually, people stop talking about Arachne like she's a warning and start talking about her like she's just there, a part of the town, like the bell tower, or that one goat that always escapes its pen and eats everyone's figs. Life moves on, as it always does, even when a myth is living quietly in the rafters. Except Arachne isn't gone. She's not a ghost. She's not even truly hiding. She's just suspended, hanging in the balance, in every sense of the phrase. You return to the temple again. You always return. The nights get colder, but she's still there, tucked in the high arches, her web strung between two marble columns, like a harp no one dares to play. It shimmers when the moon hits it. You lie back, arms folded under your head, and let your eyes follow the slow, deliberate spiral she's working on. It's a kind of lullaby in motion. Then one evening, something changes. She stops spinning. She just hangs there, unmoving. You squint, concerned. Has she finally run out of thread? Patience, will to keep existing in this awkward, sticky purgatory? Then the silk trembles, and you realize it isn't just her. It's them. Dozens of spiders, maybe hundreds, begin descending from the corners of the temple ceiling. Silently, delicately, like shadows dropping down a wall. Some are small as freckles. Others look like they've been eating better than you. Their eyes gleam. Their legs splay in perfect rhythm. And none of them seem alarmed. They're here for her. You scoot back a bit, unsure whether you've accidentally stepped into a spider revolution. But no, this is something else. Arachne twitches a leg, then another, and begins weaving again. Only this time, she's not alone. It's a tapestry, but not made of wool, and not stuck in a frame. Each spider takes a part. Silk threads crisscross, layer by layer, pattern upon pattern. You don't know how long it takes. It could be hours, could be days. You nod off in stretches, waking only when a breeze shifts the delicate lattice and reveals new designs. At first, it's just patterns, spirals, stars. Then slowly, pictures begin to emerge. A tree, a loom, a girl, a goddess. You sit up straight. It's her story, her version, the permanent one. It spreads across the temple ceiling until there's almost no visible stone left. Just a massive, interconnected silk mural floating just beneath the roof, like a dream that decided to stick around. You feel your breath catch. This isn't art for the gods. It isn't defiant. It's not even about revenge. It's a kind of memory, a record, woven in silence and spun from pain, yes, but also from persistence. Arachne never stopped weaving, even when her body changed, even when her tools disappeared. She simply adapted. That's the moment you realize she isn't cursed. She's become something else entirely. Now here's where things get sticky, and not just in the web sense. See, most myths are cautionary tales. Don't fly too close to the sun. Don't open the box. Don't talk trash about a deity while holding a pair of scissors. But this doesn't feel like punishment anymore. This feels like metamorphosis. Historians still argue whether Athena meant for the transformation to be permanent. Some ancient fragments suggest she regretted her decision immediately. One inscription claims she whispered, "You were right," before vanishing. Another says she returned once, centuries later, and watched the webs shimmer in the moonlight, but left without a word. Whether by accident or intention, Athena created something new. Not just a myth, a species. Spiders become symbols, not of punishment, but of perseverance. Think about it. They rebuild again and again after wind or broom or the occasional panicked human scream. They create art that disappears by morning and never stops spinning. They wait, patient and still, then act with sudden elegance. They're solitary mostly, unnoticed often, but never idle. You reach into your bag, pull out a scrap of cloth, and trace a spiral on it with your finger. It's not much, just a sleepy nod to what you've seen. But it feels important. The next morning, you find a strand of silk wrapped around it. A perfect little bow. You smile. Down in the village, people have started saying things like, "Don't swat that one. It might be her." They sweep more gently. Let webs linger in corners. Some even hang small pieces of thread near their doors, as if to say, "We remember and we respect." The funny part, Arachne doesn't seem to care. She just keeps weaving. You dream again that night, this time of a tapestry woven from stars. It stretches across the sky, constellations arranged like thread patterns, every glittering dot a knot of memory. You wake up with the feeling that somewhere, somehow, she's still adding to it, and maybe she is. Because now, the web isn't just in one temple, it's in every attic, every barn, every quiet room with a ceiling and a shadow. Arachne lives on, not as a warning, but as a witness, as proof that no thread, however tangled, is ever truly lost. You lean back one more time and watch the silk ripple in the breeze. It's not quite a lullaby, but it's close enough. You wake up groggily, a bit of straw in your hair, and an odd sensation that something's brushing your arm. You freeze, but it's just a gentle strand of silk drifting across you, as light as a daydream. The temple's ceiling web has grown again overnight, so intricate now, it looks like it's thinking. And in the center of it, Arachne sways gently in the breeze, 8 legs tucked beneath her like a very tired chandelier. She's not alone anymore, and she hasn't been for some time. The other spiders have made themselves very comfortable. This isn't just her myth anymore. It's a legacy, a species-wide group project with no snacks but infinite artistry. You watch her drop delicately from her web to the temple floor. It's quiet. No crowds. No gods. Just one spider with an agenda. She doesn't walk. She glides. She pauses near a crack in the stone, inspects it, and begins to weave. Not something decorative this time, but something practical. A barrier, soft but strong. The wind has been getting in, you realize. She's sealing it, protecting the space. Arachne has settled into her new role with a kind of weary dignity, the kind only those wronged by the system and too stubborn to crumble ever truly master. She has embraced spiderhood, though not like a cheery cartoon character deciding to make the best of things. No, this is more like reluctant dominance. She's still a queen, just one who crawls now. Spiders, after all, aren't just web makers. They're architects, hunters, engineers with silk and shadows. And Arachne, she's the patron saint of it all. You watch as another spider scuttles toward her, smaller, twitchier, possibly new to the whole hero of a myth situation. The tiny spider presents something, a scrap of leaf wrapped in thread. Arachne touches it briefly, almost like a nod, then sends the little one on its way. There's a system here, a rhythm. Some spiders tend the web. Some collect dew. Some chase the occasional beetle who's gotten too confident. It's like watching a miniature society operating in the quiet margins of the human world. It's organized, elegant, slightly unsettling if you think too hard about how many of them are currently watching you blink. And Arachne, she's part of it, but also a part. You see her watching them sometimes, high in her corner, legs curled inward, like she's folded into her own thoughts. She's not sad, not exactly, but there's a heaviness, a weight to her stillness, the weight of memory, of choices, of a life both lived and lost. Historians still debate whether spiders existed in myth before Arachne's transformation, or if she became the template. Some say they were always there, skittering in the background, waiting for someone to give them a story. Others argue she invented the concept, one thread at a time. There's even a fringe theory that Arachne didn't just become a spider, but rewrote the species in her image, like some divine accident rewiring the code of nature itself. Evolution via embarrassment. And honestly, that tracks. You see, these spiders are weird. One builds a spiral with perfect Fibonacci precision. No training, just instinct. Another spins a cocoon around a dead beetle, then weaves a pattern on top of it that looks suspiciously like a laurel wreath. Are they decorating their food? Making art out of mortality? Or just bored? You try not to read too much into it. Still, the coincidences pile up. Like the spider that built a perfect map of Athens in the corner of the temple roof. Or the one that used threads of actual gold from an old funeral offering to wrap its eggs. You're starting to suspect that maybe they remember more than they let on. And then one night, Arachne does something new. She leaves. You follow, of course, quietly. You tiptoe through brush and scrub, through goat paths and broken columns, until you find her just outside the village wall. She's weaving, not a web this time, but a cocoon around herself. You panic for a second. Is she giving up? Going dormant? You whisper her name, but she doesn't stop. She just keeps spinning, slowly, calmly, until she's wrapped in a perfect silk chamber. still visible through the layers, curled inward like a thought about to hatch. You sit, you wait. Dawn comes, lazy and gold. The village begins to stir. A rooster crows with a confidence it hasn't earned. And Arachne emerges, changed. Not exactly, but reset maybe. Her legs are longer now, her color darker. Her silk glows faintly in the morning light, like it remembers moonlight even in the sun. She's molted, and not just biologically. You realize she's evolving again. Arachne is adapting the way she always has, even when her body failed her, even when the gods rewrote her story, even when she had no voice, no hands, and no choice but thread. She always finds a way to keep weaving. In this form, there's no aging, no fatigue, just the endless, patient craft of a creature who has nothing left to prove and a whole lot left to spin. And somehow, that's comforting. You walk back to the temple with her, step slow, sunrise warm on your face. Behind you, a string of tiny spiders follows like soft punctuation marks. You don't know if this is legend or evolution anymore, but it feels like the beginning of something. It starts with a whisper, one of those soft, sideways little rumors that slips through markets and hearths, fluttering from one lazy conversation to the next. Someone in a village downriver says they saw a spider spin a net so wide it caught 3 birds. Another swears a spider web saved their baby from falling off a ledge. A fisherman finds his boat mysteriously tethered by threads he didn't tie, and then discovers it didn't drift during the storm. You might think these are just bedtime stories, but then the patterns start showing up. Across the Aegean, tiny villages develop their own little spider superstitions. You travel, and you start to hear them. One village ties bits of thread to their door handles for good luck. Another refuses to sweep corners of their kitchens in case the spinner is sleeping there. And in a quiet town near Mount Parnassus, they leave offerings, grapes, bits of wool, and once, suspiciously, a gold tooth in the temple ruins, right beneath the largest web you've ever seen. That web? Yeah. You recognize the design. Arachne's been here. She's moving. Or maybe her story is. Maybe she stays in one place while the myth of her grows legs. 8 of them, naturally, and scuttles across the land ahead of her. You walk into towns and hear children singing rhymes that rhyme web with dread and thread with bed, often with confusing choreography and a lot of finger wiggling. They're adorable, also wildly inaccurate. Historians still argue whether these little spider legends are rooted in Arachne's actual movements or just people filling silence with stories. A few fringe archaeologists even claim there's evidence of spider worship shrines that predate the myth entirely. But then again, Those same archaeologists also believed in flying turtles. So, grain of salt territory. Still, it's hard to ignore the pattern. Everywhere Arachne's name is whispered, spiders seem to multiply. Not in a creepy, skittering invasion way, more like a subtle, silk-smooth increase. You start to notice them in pottery, in mosaics, even painted in the folds of togas and dusty frescoes. Tiny, easy-to-miss motifs. Spiders tucked into the borders of banquet scenes. Webs woven into the background of a sea battle. It's like they're slowly stitching themselves into human memory. And humans, well, humans do what humans always do. Turn myths into metaphors. In one town, girls whisper that if you tie a spider web into your braid, you'll weave the perfect marriage. In another, people believe that dreaming of a spider means an old friend is about to return. Some say a spider in your house means a blessing. Others insist it's a curse, because of course they can't agree. And in sleepy, olive-draped towns, people begin creating little woven charms. Tiny thread spirals meant to invoke her favor. Some tuck them into cradles. Some bury them with the dead. Some wear them like protection against bad dreams or overly dramatic exes. You stop at a market stall one afternoon and notice one of these charms pinned to a merchant's cloak. You ask casually, "Nice thread work. Is that a symbol?" She nods. It's Arachne's eye. Keeps watch while I sleep. You almost smile, because it is. And it does. No one seems to agree what Arachne looks like anymore. Some picture her as a half-woman, half-spider creature, graceful, sad-eyed, still clutching a loom in her many hands. Others imagine a massive, regal spider with glowing silk and silent wisdom. A few just picture a normal spider, but one that spins impossible things, like maps, prophecies, or wedding gowns. The truth, of course, is harder to pin down, because Arachne doesn't pose for statues. She doesn't demand worship. She just weaves, quietly, consistently, tirelessly. She's become a kind of folk guardian for artists, weavers, and anyone who's ever been told you're just a girl. What could you possibly know? And let's be honest, Greece is full of those. In one coastal town, you stumble into a tiny weaving guild made up entirely of women, young and old. They work in silence at first, focused, their fingers looping, pulling, knotting. You sit and watch. Eventually, someone brings you bread, then wine. Then they talk. They don't call themselves weavers. They call themselves thread keepers. And in the center of their workshop hangs a tapestry that isn't for sale. It's small, frayed at the edges, but stunning. And in the center is a spider, not a scary one, not even particularly realistic, but gentle, thoughtful. Her legs curve into the shape of a loom. Her body is stitched from every color of thread in the room, and her eyes, tiny as they are closed, like she's sleeping or dreaming. She keeps us company, one girl says. She reminds us to keep going, says another. You ask who made the tapestry. They all shrug. It's always been here. You know better. You trace your fingers along the edges and feel the signature. Not ink, not etched. Woven. She's been here too. Arachne is everywhere and nowhere now. She's less a monster, more a whisper, a symbol passed between women like secret knowledge, between artists like a secret handshake, and between children like a bedtime story that's supposed to make them behave, but doesn't. Because here's the thing, Arachne wasn't wrong. She was punished, sure, mutated, forgotten, misunderstood, but she was right. She could outweave a goddess. And now, she doesn't need to brag. She just spins. You're somewhere near the Peloponnesian hills now. Feet dusty, mind swirling, with too many versions of the same story. The sun is dropping lazily behind a line of crooked olive trees, and there's a faint scent of thyme and smoke on the breeze. It's the kind of place that feels older than history. The kind of place where myths linger like the smell of wet stone after rain. You find yourself at the edge of an old vineyard. Crumbling columns jut from the earth like giants' teeth. And between them, webs. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. It should be unnerving. But it's not. The webs don't feel invasive or sticky. They feel placed, almost like ornaments. Some are stretched between branches, catching the gold light. Others hang delicately in the crooks of carved marble, framing ancient statues like jewelry. You take a deep breath. It smells sweet, like crushed grapes, and something faintly metallic, like old coins or morning dew on bronze. You spot her immediately. Arachne. She's bigger now. Not monstrous, not grotesque, just grand. Like someone who's had time to become exactly what they were always meant to be. Her legs stretch elegantly over a vine-draped altar, and her abdomen gleams with an almost sacred sheen. The light catches the edges of her silk, and for a heartbeat, it looks like the threads stretch all the way to the horizon. And she's not alone. A group of young girls sits nearby, each with her own modest loom. They don't speak, just watch her work. One mimics her motions with thread and wood. Another twists flower petals into her yarn like she's trying to capture sunlight. A third spins blindly, eyes closed, as if waiting for the silk to tell her where it wants to go. You sit quietly behind them, a bystander again. And somehow, that feels right. You wonder if they know who she is, what she is, or if she's just a teacher to them. A quiet force of patience and persistence. Either way, they're learning. Not just how to weave, but how to listen, how to observe, how to respect something ancient, strange, and much bigger than themselves. One girl leans forward and whispers to another. She doesn't even eat the flies. The other nods solemnly, like that's a sign of divine restraint. You smile. They've made up their own version of the story. In theirs, Arachne was chosen, not punished. Transformed so that she could teach weaving to all who came after. A symbol of divine generosity, of eternal creation. Historians still argue whether these new retellings are revisionist fluff or a kind of spiritual evolution. Some grumble that the truth's been watered down. Others suggest the myth is finally being detoxified, reclaimed from centuries of patriarchal moralizing. You, for one, find it oddly reassuring. Arachne herself seems unmoved by her growing fan base. She keeps weaving, slow, exact, graceful. One of the girls places a single olive leaf near her web, then backs away respectfully. You catch a glimpse of something new in the silk, a spiral folded into the image of a hand holding thread. It looks familiar. You lean back against a sun-warmed stone and remember something. In older myths, Athena was sometimes called Ergain, the worker, the craftswoman goddess. But no temple statue ever showed her spinning. She oversaw craft. She didn't do it. That was left to mortals. Mortals like Arachne. Maybe that's why it stung so badly when a girl dared to be better. Not just in talent, but in boldness. She didn't worship. She didn't bow. She just wove. You wonder if Athena still watches. If she peers down from some lofty cloud, sees the web-thread temples, the spider-shaped jewelry, the little girls learning to spin in the dirt, and wonders how her own myth unraveled so far from the version she controlled. Maybe she feels proud, maybe jealous, maybe both. The wind shifts. A low, lazy breeze rustles the vines. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere above, the silk strains gently, vibrating with tiny footfalls. A soft note in a symphony only spiders hear. You imagine what it would feel like to spin your thoughts into thread, to work through pain, memory, and injustice, not with words, but with silk. No audience, no applause. Just the quiet satisfaction of turning raw instinct into delicate precision. That's what Arachne does. She doesn't seek revenge. She doesn't lecture. She simply outlasts everyone. Because gods rage and fade, statues crumble, names change. But spiders, they adapt. One of the girls beside you holds up her finished tapestry. It's small, rough at the edges, but in the center is a figure. Not quite a spider, not quite a woman. Just a shape made of thread, folded into itself, spinning. She smiles and tucks it into her satchel like a lucky charm. You don't ask questions. You just lie back, watching the sky darken to indigo, and think how strange and wonderful it is that a girl who once dared to outweave a goddess has now become a myth so patient, so quiet, that it wraps itself into the corners of your house and whispers to your sleep. You wake up under that same olive tree, face creased from the stone it rested on, limbs heavy, like they've woven their own invisible threads into the dirt. Above you, the sky is blushing with dawn, soft and pale, and for a long moment, all you hear is wind and leaves. and the faint clicking of spider legs overhead. Arachne's still there, still weaving. Of course she is. You wonder if she sleeps, if she dreams, if, deep inside whatever mind she still possesses, there's memory, a fragment of the contest, a flash of Athena's eyes. Or maybe, mercifully, it's all faded. Maybe all she knows now is the thread. Maybe that's enough. But for humans, the story's just beginning to tangle. Because now there's a problem. Spiders are showing up in places they didn't before. They're spinning in libraries, in tombs, in temples that haven't had a visitor since someone left an amphora and forgot to pick it up. And in temples still lit with oil lamps and bustling with sandal-footed prayers. One priest in Delphi swears he heard whispering in the rafters that sounded like silk thinking. Another claims a spider web appeared in the shape of Athena's face, frowning sternly above his altar. He burned it. The web, not the altar. 2 weeks later, he lost his voice for a month. Coincidence? Sure. Absolutely. Maybe. But the whispers grow louder. There's a new kind of tale circulating now. One whispered not by children or weavers, but by travelers, sailors, scholars. The kinds of people who say things like, "I'm not superstitious, but," and then go on to describe a spider saving their life mid-shipwreck. You hear about a merchant who tried to sell fake arachne charms and woke up wrapped in thread, dangling from his own ceiling. Another traveler speaks of a city far to the east where spiders are considered omens of balance. If they spin near your door, good fortune comes. If they leave, so does your luck. Historians still argue whether this new wave of spider reverence is a revival of older, pre-Olympian beliefs or something new entirely. Something born of whispers, myths, and one girl's story spreading beyond the reach of marble temples and dusty scrolls. You walk into a new town and see it firsthand. There's a festival happening. Not grand like the Panathenea, but intimate, local. The kind where half the kids are wearing tunics stitched by grandmothers, and there's more bread than anyone could ever possibly eat. You expect music. You expect dancing. You don't expect the massive web strung like a canopy across the town square. It's woven between the tops of poles, stretched overhead like a second sky. Decorations hang from it. Ribbons, charms, tiny woven animals, even silver-painted olive leaves that clink gently in the breeze. People pass beneath it with reverence, brushing their hands across its lower threads like it might bless them. At the center of it, a woven spiral. You squint. It's not silk. It's thread. Hand-dyed. Hand-woven. But the design is unmistakable. Arachne's spiral. Her signature. You approach a woman standing nearby, a wide basket on her hip. She smiles and says, "The skyweb keeps the bad dreams away." You ask, "Is it for Arachne?" She laughs softly. It's from her. She watches over us. You stare up, heart buzzing with something between awe and confusion. Because somehow, this once forgotten mortal girl, cursed and twisted into a form the world was supposed to fear, has become a protector, a blessing, a myth turned guardian. The wind picks up, and the web overhead trembles, not violently, but musically, like it's singing. And in that moment, you think, maybe she hears it too. You walk through the festival slowly, savoring every bizarre little tribute. There's a game where kids race to untangle yarn. There's a booth where elders share weaving tricks passed down from their own grandmothers. There's even a poem recited at dusk by a girl no older than 10, her voice shaking, but her hands steady, her hair threaded with real web silk. When she finishes, there's no applause, just silence, and a slow nod from every woman over 40. You leave that night with a hand-spun bracelet tied around your wrist and the distinct feeling that you've witnessed something sacred, but not solemn, something that lives in corners and rafters, in laughter and quiet crafts, in the tiny decisions that say, "We remember you," even if the gods pretend not to. Back on the road, you catch sight of spiders more often now. One drops beside your ear as you walk. You freeze. It dangles there, inches from your cheek. Just watching, you whisper, "Hello, Arachne." It climbs back up its thread and disappears. Coincidence? Sure, definitely. Except you know better. She's everywhere now. Not because she demands worship, not because she wants vengeance, but because thread is a powerful thing. It binds, it repairs, it remembers, and once it's woven into the fabric of a people, it's almost impossible to unpick. You follow the winding road eastward, where the air gets cooler and the hills grow taller, and the stones underfoot are older than most family trees. Travelers whisper that the ruins up here are haunted, but of course they are. Everything ancient and echoey gets called haunted eventually. It just means people stopped paying rent and the spiders moved in. The sun is dipping low again when you reach the cliffside shrine. It's a strange little place, half collapsed, half overgrown, and fully ignored by gods and men alike. Moss clings to the old columns like a protective mother, and ivy snakes through what used to be a mosaic floor. You brush aside a fern and spot it immediately. A perfect web stretched across the entry like a velvet rope at a club you don't remember signing up for. Inside, the webwork deepens. Not just random strands, but patterns, spirals, loops. Some shimmer faintly as you pass, moonlight trapped in threads. One particularly large web looks like it's been painted with ash or ink, but it hasn't. It's just been woven that way. And dead center, wrapped in a dream catcher of impossible geometry, is a word. Not written. Spun. You squint. It says, "Listen." Well, you're awake now. You sit cross-legged beneath the web, feeling the cool stone seep through your cloak. There's no one else here, no audience, no priest, just you, a message, and about 40 spiders who are very good at pretending to be invisible. So you listen, and slowly the shrine begins to hum, not with sound, but with story. The kind that seeps in through your skin rather than your ears. You feel it in your spine, the way you feel thunder in your bones. Arachne isn't just a myth anymore. She's infrastructure. She lives in every thread of every story where someone challenged power and got punished for being right. Every whisper about someone too good at their craft. Every uncomfortable truth told in beautiful form. Every "don't be too proud" lesson wrapped in cautionary lace. You start to notice how many stories are like hers. Not just in Greece, but everywhere. The woman who sang too well. The boy who painted the gods as flawed. The farmer who dared to say the king wasn't divine. All punished, all remembered. It's almost like the punishment was a badge of authenticity. Historians still argue whether these echo myths, as they're sometimes called, were invented after Arachne, inspired by her defiance, or if they've always been there, scattered like thread through every culture, only now being pulled together into a tapestry of shared rebellion. You sit in the ruined shrine for hours. At some point, a spider drops a pebble-sized object onto your lap. You flinch. It's a tiny spindle, woven from bark and silk. You turn it in your hands. It's useless as a tool, too delicate to spin anything real. But it's perfect as a token, a reminder, a message, maybe, from the myth herself. That night, you dream not of spiders, but of threads, endless threads, crisscrossing the world, connecting people who've never met, women at looms in distant lands, children making bracelets in dusty yards, artists quietly weaving protest into patterns, scholars translating Arachne's name again and again into every language, but always preserving the word weaver. You wake up with a start and realize Arachne isn't just in Greece anymore. She's global now. You head into a nearby village and find evidence without even trying. A tiny charm shop near the well sells witch webs, necklaces shaped like spirals. One young boy shows you a spider bite on his arm and grins. "She kissed me," he says. His mother rolls her eyes, but doesn't deny it. In the local school, a teacher reads from a scroll, a revised myth where Arachne wins, and Athena applauds, and they both teach weaving to mortals together. It's idealized, probably inaccurate, but the point isn't truth. It's what people need the story to be, and what they do with it. Because every new retelling, every silk thread bracelet, every whispered bedtime tale adds another layer to her tapestry. It stretches beyond walls now, beyond temples and time and text. You see it on the sails of ships, stitched spirals to protect against storms. You see it in graffiti scrawled on alley walls. spin truth anyway. You hear it in prayers spoken by women who are done apologizing for being excellent at what they do. They don't say her name, but you know who they mean. And all the while, Arachne weaves. She doesn't lecture, doesn't brag, doesn't pop up to correct anyone's version of the tale. She just spins. Each thread is a memory, each web a page, and when a thread breaks, she rebuilds it, not the same, but better, because that's what she's always done. And now, so do we. You leave the cliffs behind, your cloak a little more threadbare, your bag a little heavier with tokens and soft, unanswered questions. The path back down winds through sleepy fields and pale stone paths, but you're not alone. Spiders walk with you, not literally on your shoulder, though one does ride your satchel flap like it's their personal chariot, but symbolically. The world feels webbed now, connected by silk threads you can't see, only feel, pulling gently in all directions. And maybe that's the point. You stop in a lowland town known for making olive oil and scandalous pottery. The former, they're proud of. The latter, they insist, is for export only. You find a tavern with creaky steps and a kind-eyed innkeeper who sets down your bowl of lentils with a whispered, "If you hear clicking tonight, don't panic. It's just the attic." You nod. Of course it is. After dinner, you explore. The village square has a fountain, a fig tree, and, naturally, a weaving circle. Older women sit on benches beneath lanterns, chatting with the kind of ease that suggests they've solved all major world problems already and just haven't bothered to tell anyone yet. You ask if you can watch. They pat the seat beside them like you've always belonged. You ask, "Have you heard of Arachne?" They laugh in unison. One of them, a woman with one eye, two canes, and about 70 opinions, leans in and says, "Child, she lives in my ceiling. Caught my husband snoring once." Another chimes in. "She helps me count rows. 8 legs are very good for precision." They're joking, mostly, but when the conversation quiets, one of them, the quietest one, with sharp fingers and a smile like a closed fan, tells you something different. She says, "I saw her once, not long ago, in the olive press, weaving shadows into the wall. She didn't speak, but the thread spelled out a question." You lean forward. "What question?" She says, "What will you do with the story?" That one lands in your stomach like a stone in a still pond. Because up until now, it's felt like Arachne's myth is something to receive. A gift, a lesson, maybe even a cautionary bedtime whisper. But now it's a question. What do you do with it? You walk back to your room in silence, the lantern swaying, casting soft light on the empty corners where spiders make plans. That night, you can't sleep. You lie there listening. Not for snores, or ghosts, or attic spiders, but for her. You start to imagine that she's not just in corners anymore. that maybe she's under your pillow, spinning threads from your dreams. That maybe the feeling in your chest isn't unease, but tugging. The pull of thread, soft and certain, winding around your heart. Because if Arachne's story has one truth, it's this. She keeps going. She adapts, reinvents, spins from scratch when everything's taken, and slowly people are starting to follow. Historians still argue whether the new weaving movements popping up across the region are inspired directly by her myth or just a convenient coincidence. Some say there's a cultural resurgence, a shift away from marble and bronze toward fiber, fabric, and form. Others say it's just trendy rusticism, whatever that means. But you know better. You've seen the web work. You've heard the clicking rhythm. And you've watched the way people sit down with thread, even in silence, and find their way back to each other. In this village, there's a new tradition. Every girl receives a spindle on her 12th birthday, not to teach obedience, not to prepare her for marriage, to remind her she can make things, thread, pattern, beauty, truth. You sit with one girl, barely taller than your elbow, as she spins for the first time. Her tongue sticks out in concentration. Her foot taps out a rhythm. Her thread tangles, then loosens. She mutters a curse that isn't quite PG rated. You lean in and say, "You know Arachne got tangled too." She frowns. "What did she do?" You say, "She kept spinning." She nods, keeps going. You smile. Because that's the point, isn't it? Not that Arachne was punished. Not that she was proud, but that she was right. And she refused to stop spinning, even after the world turned her into something meant to be feared. You look around at this quiet, humming town, at the webs in the rafters, at the threads tying people together in loops of shared craft, at the girl next to you who just muttered, "Yes," because her thread didn't snap this time. And you think, the story's not just alive, it's working. By the time you leave that village, your bag is heavier by one tiny spindle, a ball of olive-dyed thread, and a note from the girl that just says, "I made this for you." It's not perfect, but neither are spiders. You don't cry, but your eyes do that watery thing that's just allergies, obviously. The road south takes you along a coastline that seems made of sighs and salt. The sea whispers against the rocks, like it's been waiting for someone to listen. And of course, you do. Because ever since you started walking Arachne's thread, you've learned that everything has a voice. Especially the quiet things. You stop in a seaside town so small it doesn't have a name. Just a carved stone sign that says, "Welcome." Like even the village isn't sure it exists. You're led to an inn that doubles as a bakery, and your room smells like cinnamon, salt, and dreams. That night, a storm rolls in. The wind howls like it's lost something. Rain lashes the roof. Thunder paces the hills. You watch the sea foam up like boiling milk and wonder how this place still stands. And then you notice something odd. Your window doesn't rattle. In fact, it's reinforced. Not with shutters, not with nails, with thread. Delicate strands crisscross the frame, woven with intent. You press your palm against the glass. It's warm, and for just a second, it feels like the web is humming. Morning comes, soggy and sheepish. The storm passes. Nothing's broken. Nothing's lost. You step outside and see other homes, other windows, each webbed with silk, each untouched by the chaos. It's subtle. You have to really look, but it's everywhere. One woman catches you staring and shrugs. She watches over us. You ask who. She rolls her eyes. Who do you think? The spider, of course. Not Arachne. Not the Weaver Girl. Just the spider. A title. A presence. Not myth. Function. This place doesn't tell stories about her anymore. They live with her. They point to her web, the way others point to the stars or the sea. Not to wonder, but to navigate. Historians still debate whether this practical reverence, as one overly earnest scroll calls it, is the result of long-term folk tradition or just plain survival instinct. Arachne protects, after all, if not through miracles, then through careful structure. Webs aren't magic, they're engineering. And engineering saves buildings in storms. You walk along the docks and spot sailors tying knots shaped like spirals. Storm catchers, one explains, keeps the rage out. You ask, whose rage? He just smiles and says, whichever god feels dramatic that day. You laugh, but you know. They mean Athena. Or maybe Poseidon. Or maybe just fate. Back at the inn, you find a child crouched near the fireplace, watching a spider repair its web between two ceiling beams. The child doesn't swat, or call for help, or make a noise. Just watches. You crouch too. Together, you observe the work. The delicate anchor thread, the outer frame, the careful spiral inward. The spider moves with a rhythm so precise it could be music. You whisper, "Do you know who that is?" The child shrugs. No name, just helps, simple, and somehow perfect. Because Arachne's evolution isn't about pride anymore, or punishment, or even defiance. It's about function, continuity, a gift wrapped in silence, a presence not demanding recognition, just offering stability, a net you didn't ask for, but are grateful is there when you fall. You leave a thread offering by the inn's door, a small looped pattern you've started weaving instinctively now, half prayer, half thank you note. In the morning, it's gone. You never saw who took it. You pass other towns, other coastal homes, and always, now, there's evidence, webbed shutters, threaded charms in market stalls, even sailors who speak in nautical metaphors that sound suspiciously like Arachne's teachings. She spins the storms away. She weaves your sails tight. If you drift too far, follow the thread. You cross paths with a wandering poet who insists that Arachne lives under the sea now, in a cave made of coral and silk, that she sings in whale tones and weaves underwater cities from kelp and moonlight. Is it true? Probably not. Is it beautiful? Absolutely. And maybe that's what matters more now. Not whether the myth is factual, but whether it threads meaning through someone's life. You reach a high cliff where the sea breaks loud and white. There's no shrine, no offering, just a single strand of silk stretched across a broken stone, fluttering in the sea breeze. You sit beside it and breathe. This far from the heart of things, the myths blur. They stretch like thread in the wind. But one thing stays clear. Wherever you find silk, you find Arachne. Maybe not in body, maybe not even in story, but in presence. She isn't waiting to be understood. She's already here. You're far from home now, if you can even remember where home used to be. Your sandals are nearly worn through. Your cloak smells like 3 different kinds of smoke, and your dreams have started looping in threadwork spirals, silk fractals unfolding behind your eyelids like delicate spider lullabies. And the weird part? It's comforting, because now, no matter how remote the road or unfamiliar the dialect, there's always something waiting in the corner. A glint of thread, a half-spun shape, a whisper, soft and sticky, tucked into the rafters like a house guest who never left. Arachne is everywhere, and in some places, she's formal. You arrive at a town wedged into the shoulder of a mountain, guarded by cliffs on one side and sheer mist on the other. The locals call it Metaklios, which roughly translates to beyond fame. Modest, but confident. You like them already. Here, the reverence for Arachne has been ritualized into something strange, structured, and kind of wonderful. Every month, the town holds a thread night. You're lucky enough to arrive just before one. It's not a celebration in the usual sense. There's no feasting, no dramatic fire dancers or wine-soaked ballads. Instead, the town simply weaves. Everything stops for a night. Shops close. Farmers stack their tools. Children are excused from lessons. Everyone gathers in the square with bundles of thread. Some dyed, some plain, some reclaimed from unraveled cloaks or old fishing nets. And they begin. It's silent at first. Just the hum of hands and thought. People sit on cushions, kneel on woven mats, or lean into the stone walls and begin threading. Some make small charms. Others create abstract shapes, or massive spirals, or strange tangled things that look like dreams trying to take form. You're handed a loop of wool by an older woman who just says, "You'll know what to do." You don't, but your hands begin anyway, and soon the thread guides you, not toward beauty, toward expression. You're not making something pretty. You're making something true. Across from you, a boy with trembling fingers knots a shape that looks suspiciously like a broken bird. To your left, a baker loops dark blue thread into a wave pattern and whispers softly as he works, like he's speaking to the ocean itself. And in the center of it all, the loom. It's not a loom like you've ever seen. It's massive, circular, hung horizontally from 4 cedar posts. Strands stretch from its center like rays of a sun, and townsfolk take turns weaving into it, one after the other, layering patterns on top of old ones, no single part visible at once. A tapestry with no beginning and no end. And in the middle of that loom is a spider, not moving, just sitting, watching. She's large, not terrifyingly so, but enough to earn respect. Her legs curl under her body like she's waiting, or maybe just listening. No one acknowledges her. No one bows. No offerings. She's just present. It's understood, and somehow sacred. Historians still debate whether the loom cult, as some dramatic scrolls call it, is an evolution of earlier Arachne worship, or just a communal practice that happens to involve spiders. But standing here, thread in hand, you know better. It isn't a cult. It's communion. You stay long into the night, weaving your piece into the shared tapestry. At one point, your thread tangles with someone else's, and you glance up to apologize, only to find them smiling. That's how the pattern grows, they say. You nod, because it is. You begin to understand that what Arachne created wasn't just a legacy of silk. It was a method, a way of being, of making sense of the world, one thread at a time, of taking what's tangled and broken and turning it into structure, stability, maybe even beauty. You think back to the girl who challenged a goddess and lost everything, but kept weaving anyway. And now, generations later, people who've never heard her full story sit under starlight, threading their grief, joy, and confusion into something shared, something sacred. The loom doesn't judge, neither does Arachne. She just watches. At the end of thread night, the town doesn't display the tapestry. They don't cut it down or hang it in a temple. They cover it with linen and leave it in place. A living document, one that grows. And when you ask if you'll ever see your piece again, a young boy shrugs and says, "Only if you return." But you know something he doesn't. Your thread's in there now, and threads don't forget. You leave Metaklios as the sun rises behind you, casting gold across the misty cliffs and turning the linen-covered loom into something glowing and half divine. You don't say goodbye to the spider. She's still there, curled and calm in the center, as if the silence of thread night is still humming under her. She knows. You walk the winding paths alone now, but it doesn't feel lonely. There's a sense, steady and strange, that you're part of something ongoing. That the thread you added didn't just stay on the loom, but tied you to it, to them, to her. Everywhere you go, now, you notice the signs. In a remote shepherd's village, you spot sheep wearing wool blankets stitched with tiny spirals. One boy points at the pattern and says, "Keeps the wolves away." His father just shrugs like, "Sure, why not?" In a crowded marketplace, a seller offers you woven satchels dyed in deep earth tones. "We call this the eight-legged weave," she says proudly. "It won't tear, even if your donkey drags it through the river." You don't have a donkey, but you buy one anyway. On a temple wall in a city you've never seen mapped, someone's drawn a mural. A woman, half-shadowed, her lower body dissolving into a web that connects stars, faces, and stories, all in one infinite loop. No caption, no signature, just a quiet reverence that says, "We know." And in every one of these places, every stall, shrine, school, and street, there's at least one spider quietly spinning in the corner. No one shoos it away, because now, no matter where you go, people respect the thread, not just the literal one, although there's plenty of that too, but the deeper one, the through line, the inheritance of stubborn creativity, of silent rebellion, of choosing to build even after everything has been stripped away. You meet an old man who carves stories into driftwood. He doesn't speak much, but you see that he's traced a spiral into the palm of his walking stick. You ask him what it means. He points to the horizon and mutters, "All of it, that way." Another town hosts a children's play about Arachne. It's hilariously inaccurate. Athena is played by a boy in a mop wig, and the climactic weaving scene involves yarn being thrown across the stage like a noodle fight. But the message hits. When Arachne wins, the children cheer. When she's cursed, they boo. When she reappears as a spider at the end, they gasp, then clap. You realize the version they've been taught isn't about fear. It's about transformation. Historians still argue whether this evolving narrative, where Arachne is less a punished mortal and more a mythic hero, is a distortion of the original myth, or just a long overdue correction. One professor wrote that Arachne is becoming less like a cautionary tale and more like a secular saint for stubborn artists. You'd buy her a drink. There's something freeing about it, isn't there? A story that doesn't trap you, but wraps you gently. A net that holds, not to bind, but to catch you if you fall. That's what Arachne offers now. Not fear, not threat, not even revenge, but structure, support, a quiet voice that says, "Keep weaving, even when they tell you not to." You reach a crossroads where the land curves back into itself, forming a kind of natural amphitheater filled with wind, wildflowers, and bird calls. You sit, exhausted and grateful, and let the silence settle around you like a woven cloak. There's a spider spinning between two wild olive branches. You watch her. She doesn't rush, doesn't hesitate. Each strand she places is perfect, but not because it's symmetrical. It's perfect because it's intentional, built not for applause or gods, but for herself, for use. That's what Arachne understood. And that's what so many missed. Athena wanted loyalty. The world wanted humility. But Arachne wanted truth. And now she has it. Not in statues, not in hymns, in thread. You lie back in the grass and imagine all the invisible lines crossing the sky. Webs between stars, between towns, between storytellers and listeners. The whole world strung together by stories that refuse to die, by myths that refuse to stay in the corners, by one girl who refused to bow. And so the world bends around her instead, not to worship, but to weave with her. You follow one last path, worn but soft, like it's been walked 1,000 times by people carrying something precious in their hearts. The trees here lean in, not ominously, but protectively, like they're shielding you from whatever's rushing on behind. The light filters through their branches in thin golden stripes, and everything is so still, you almost forget you're breathing. And then you see it. No sign, no gate, just a clearing, and in the middle, an enormous web. This one isn't hidden in corners or stretched between trees. It is the clearing. It spans the entire glade like a cathedral dome spun from moonlight and memory. Threads cross and arc in quiet symphony, layered so densely it feels like standing inside a tapestry. And in the center, suspended like the heart of a galaxy, is Arachne. She's not monstrous. She's not terrifying. She doesn't glow or pulse or speak. She just is. Large, yes, but elegant, composed. She's still weaving. And unlike every other web you've seen, this one doesn't just catch light. It reflects stories. You look closely and see. A girl daring to enter a contest she was never supposed to win. A spider weaving its body back together after a windstorm tore through. A woman standing before a ruined loom and choosing to start over. You, walking, watching, listening. It's all here, and it always has been, because the stories don't disappear. They change. They stretch, split, knot, and rethread. But they hold. Arachne doesn't pause when she sees you. She just tilts her body ever so slightly, acknowledging your presence the way an old friend might from across a busy room. You step forward, not out of fear, not out of awe, out of recognition. because you finally understand. Arachne's curse wasn't a prison. It was permission. Permission to keep creating, even in monstrous form. Permission to defy what the gods demanded and instead make something true. Something yours. Something useful. This myth, the one they told you was meant to keep you humble, was never about staying small. It was about weaving big, rebelliously, repetitively, quietly, until the world couldn't ignore it anymore. You look around. The web doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like a nest, a map, a memory palace spun into the air itself. You sit down beneath it, threading a few strands of your own into a shape that isn't perfect, but it's yours. You hum as you work. Something ancient, something borrowed from wind and thread. When you finish, the web accepts it, folds your addition in as if it had always been part of the plan. Arachne lifts a single leg, not a bow, not a wave, just a moment of stillness, shared. Then she returns to her work, and you rise. You walk out of the clearing with silk on your sleeves, stories in your head, and something subtle but unbreakable wrapped around your chest. Not fear, not pride, just thread. The kind that doesn't fray when stretched. The kind that remembers. The kind that ties you to a girl who wove too well for the gods and didn't apologize. The kind that whispers, keep going, because somewhere in the rafters, in the corners, in the air, Arachne is still spinning, and now, so are you. The path behind you narrows, softens. Trees hush. The breeze grows gentler, like it knows not to speak too loudly now. You walk slower. Each step feels less like a journey forward and more like settling, like thread relaxing back into the skein. You carry no souvenirs, but your hands remember the shape of thread. Your breath has matched its rhythm. You pass under arching branches laced with webs, each one catching twilight like silver dreams, and the world begins to dim. Not with fear or finality, but with ease, as if all things that are tangled are slowly unspooling themselves into something warm and whole again. A soft hush settles over your shoulders. You hear the whisper of thread stretching, but not breaking. You lie down in the soft moss. You close your eyes, and as sleep pulls you inward, gentle and sure, you feel the story fold itself around you. Not like a lesson, but like a blanket. There is no warning here, no scolding God, no crash of thunder, just the quiet sound of weaving and something watching, not to judge, just to keep the corners strong. The web holds. You are part of it now. And there, in the hush between breaths, you hear it. Keep going.